Good afternoon. The House Local Government Municipal Finance Committee will come to order. At this point, we will go at ease to allow for members to arrive. And so at this point, we'll go at ease to call the chair. It is. The Local Government and Municipal Finance Committee will return to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Here.
Representatives Burns.
Here.
Shannon.
Present.
Bream.
Present.
Rogers.
Here.
Hill. Hoskins.
Here.
Pies. Zorn.
Here.
Paquette.
I'm here.
Bizat.
Here.
Harris. Preston. Mr. Chair, you have 9 members. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We need a motion to approve and adopt the minutes from the February 1st meeting of the committee.
So moved.
Rep. Burns moves to adopt the minutes. By unanimous consent, they are adopted. My apologies, members. We actually need a motion to approve and adopt the minutes from the February 8th meeting. Representative Burns, do you make the same motion?
Yes.
Representative Burns moves to adopt the minutes from the February 8th meeting, and without objection, the minutes are adopted. Thank you for your patience, members. It has been a couple of weeks since we met. It is good to see everybody back, and thank you to all the members for making the effort to be here today. It is quite a busy one here in Lansing, and so thank you all for making the effort to be here. As we do have special guests to testify today, we have Amy O'Leary from the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments and Dave B. from the West Michigan Regional Planning Commission to provide a joint presentation. So I'd like to invite you here to begin your testimony. I'd like to just ask members to hold their questions until the end of the presentation, and look forward to hearing from both of you today, Ms. O'Leary and Mr. B.
Thank you very much. My name is Amy O'Leary. I am the Executive Director of the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments over in the Detroit metropolitan area, and I'll let my counterpart introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Dave B. with the West Michigan Regional Planning Commission in Grand Rapids, covering 8 counties. I'm pleased to be here today.
Thanks. I'm going to kick it off and just talk to you for a few minutes today. A little bit about why regions like SEMCOG and Dave's region, why we are important and valuable partners to you all and what we are to our local governments. So around Southeast Michigan and the whole state, there are regions like SEMCOGs, and we perform a lot of the same duties, whether we're as large as SEMCOG or some aren't as large. And some of the things that we do to help our local communities include a lot of research and data that can assist them, but also is available to you, and I'll show you some of those today. We do really work to engage and disseminate information and hear back from our members on important information that we hear at the state level, getting it down to them or the other way around. We are a liaison with our state and federal partners. So at the department levels, we engage quite regularly, both at the state and federal level with the departments. We will go and work with our communities and provide technical assistance. So we might go out and help them with a road safety audit or have a conversation about, how they are working in during COVID times, for example. And they really rely on us, and we actually get really high marks for what we do in providing grant guidance and funding assistance to them. So as you know, there's a lot of programs out there. So trying to distill what are those programs that are most applicable to local communities and really help distill that and bring those programs so that the funding can happen in the state of Michigan and to our regions. And finally, we work on developing regional plans, and those plans can be in a lot of different areas, from transportation or economic development, broadband or water, environmental, parks. All of those plans are important at the regional level so that when you all work with your communities, we make a connection to what they're trying to do and implement at the local level and how it really fits together as a region, which then fits together as a state. So this is a map just to show all the different regions that we do cover the whole state of Michigan, and there's actually an association called the Michigan Association of Regions that meets monthly and goes and talks through how we can work together to make sure that we provide a sustainable, collaborative communities in a strong state. Now I'm going to spend just a minute talking about the SEMCOG side and what we do, and then Dave will talk a little bit about his group. We do work in the 7-county area of Southeast Michigan, and that we are, and the words didn't show up for some reason, so I'm going to have a lot to say with you. Won't be able to see it on the screen, which it's okay. So we have 7 counties. We have a little under half the population in the state of Michigan, but a little over half of the economic activity is in our region. We work in the areas of transportation, infrastructure, environment, economic development, education, parks and recreation, and regional forecasting. We have recently adopted a new policy platform that we're going to follow up and get to your offices that was put together by a bipartisan group of elected officials from our region and was adopted by our executive committee. And really, some of the things that they want to share is that, one, we know that you all that are on local government, many of you worked in local government and have an appreciation for what local governments do. And we are happy to see how many of you have worked in local government before, because I think there's a huge value to that. There really is a need as legislation moves through that there is inclusion with local communities, and even after the legislation is passed, that when things happen, that they're transparent, because the local governments are the ones, as you know, that are on the ground answering the questions, implementing many of these laws, and so they need to be part of the process and to have things that then are implemented transparent so that they can work cooperatively. We want to make sure you see all of us, whether we're local governments or associations, as partners with you. We often say that our staff can be technical resources to you all as you move forward on issues, whether it's in this local government committee or many of the other committees that you're on. And just ask you to consider that, as you know, we are often in search of tools to help our local governments be able to do their jobs better. So I'm going to spend just a minute going over some of the items in our platform. So we do work in the areas of infrastructure, as we talked about, transportation, EV, broadband, the underground infrastructure, as well as water affordability and flooding. And so these just highlight a few of those on the screen. But one of the examples of a tool that we're interested in is the tool relating to stormwater utilities and making those be a viable option in the state of Michigan. We find most of our communities that we talk to about that would find that as a very useful tool. When it comes to infrastructure, one of the things we do is we make sure that infrastructure coordination happens. So we work with the state, such as MDOT and the Michigan Infrastructure Council, to bring together above ground, underground infrastructure, private sector, to be able to talk about what's going on and make sure that that coordination is taking place. We also have a lot of data when it comes to infrastructure, and on the screen is the roads and bridge information and the condition of those roads and bridges for Southeast Michigan. A lot of our data is then broken apart by district, so you can see that within your district what it looks like. And I would say that our peers across all of Michigan have this kind of data that can be helpful to all of you. We also have additional information on, traffic counts, traffic crashes. So if some of those are of interest to you, it's available. We have also developed a broadband planning hub, which means in Southeast Michigan, we are what's being called as the broadband navigator, which is a designation that's come out of the state of Michigan MyHigh office. And really, it really focuses on the work that regions already do, which is communicate between the state and local communities on what's available when it comes to the broadband resources. So we have a planning hub, for example, that has information. It has the broadband availability and usage for our region mapped out, along with all the grants that are available and case studies. So our job is to make sure that they're taking advantage of those opportunities that are out there. In the area of communities, we talk a fair bit of property tax revenues and trying to end unfunded mandates and those things that you are all very familiar with. I would say that today I was on the phone with a couple of mayors, including Mayor Hammoud, who you obviously know, and others, who basically said, the locals are the closest to the pain points, and we need the resources to deal with it. So that was a message from him. So I think that, I was going to say that probably sounds like him. So we also have all the census information from 2020, and we do forecast out through 2050. So if you want to see where the people and the jobs are forecasted to be, we have that information as well. We also work with our communities on local operations. So if they need to get together and talk about COVID response and what they were doing in COVID response. How are they using their ARPA funds? What are they doing with the opioid settlements? And some of those I know at the federal level and at the local level, you're interested in what they're doing. So we survey them, we provide them with information about what others are doing to make sure that it's the best use of those resources. We also work in the area of economic development and workforce development, including prioritizing some of our industries, eliminating barriers to employment, K-12. We have a number of resources that's helpful in those areas. This map shows you total jobs by census tract that you can look at where the jobs are. But we also have the employment centers for the region, building permits. We collect every building permit that there is out there. The unemployment rate. If you need information on the economy, you can let us know. We also have been active in the shift towards EV and making sure that our local communities understand the tools that are out there. So we have a number of information that just show maps of where the charging locations currently are. What are the funding opportunities that are out there? All of this in an online resource that actually, in partnership with the MEDC, they've asked us if we would take that toolkit for Southeast Michigan and make it a state of Michigan toolkit. And then in our natural areas, we talk a lot about water infrastructure, which relates to both. We've updated our water infrastructure policies and actions. Those are going to be adopted by our General Assembly of our 178 local communities in a month. But some of those issues that we've brought into include water affordability, asset management, public education. So if those are things that you're interested in and you want to see what are the regions saying about those topics, we have regional policies from local governments on those topics. We also, in our policy platform, talk about the importance of nature-based solutions and how green infrastructure can help us solve some of our challenges. And right now we do have Mayor Hammoud and Mayor Barnett from Rochester Hills leading an initiative for us on how do we use green, growing our resiliency, equity, and economy by using nature. And we're setting metrics for our region, and we actually have an appropriations request to implement this green initiative as an element of increasing the tree canopy in our region, but also using nature to solve some of the flooding issues that we've had so prevalent in Southeast Michigan. We also work in Parks and Rec, so we have online apps that shows you every park in Southeast Michigan and what you can do there. And the policy platform side of things, we are continuing to talk to the DNR about the importance of parks and recreation funding being located where the people are. And that doesn't just mean in Southeast Michigan, but the focus, in our opinion, needs to be in urbanized areas for those parks and recreation dollars. So the last thing for me is just we will be giving you that policy platform. There's a lot of resources, both online resources, but just our staff is very willing and interested in having conversations as you move forward to be able to provide you data or resources that they know about. And I'm going to turn it over now to Dave.
All right, thank you. Well, there are 14 regions across the state, and we're each different. You can tell SIMCOG covers a lot of different policies and programs, whereas the West Michigan Regional Planning Commission, we just focus on a few things and go from there. We cover the 8 counties, Allegan, Berry, Ionia, Kent, Mecosta, Montcalm, Osceola, and Ottawa. I always list them in alphabetical order so I don't hurt anybody's feelings. Our commission includes county and local elected and appointed officials, and as well as others. Anybody from a community college to a chamber of commerce sits on our 33-person board. We have a budget of about $285,000 this year, so it's a smaller organization. We have a staff of 2.6, so you're looking at one of the full-time employees, but not the most important. Actually, the .6 is the one that runs the show. One of the programs that we work most closely with is the U.S. Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration. We work with them to bring in economic development grants for communities, and they're basically infrastructure grants for water and sewer and roads. City of Wyoming had an EDA grant for road realignment. It's been a while, so I need to refresh in that statistic. But we've brought in about $48 million to our communities through the EDA and the CEDS program, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, one of those regional plans that Amy was talking about. Our biggest program that we work with is actually the Michigan Department of Transportation. I'm sorry, I'm not following it. I'm always off the rails. They can't keep me on them, but we work with the Department of Transportation. The State Department of Transportation is our biggest program. We work in the rural areas to distribute the federal and state funds to our communities and counties and transit agencies. We work with the small urbans to do the same distribution of funds. We also work with the Asset Management, or the Transportation Asset Management Council, where we physically drive up and down all of the roads with a road commission person and a Department of Transportation person, and give it a rating of 1 to 10 to see where the trends are going with the condition of the roadways. And we also work with the regular planning program with MDOT and a couple of other pieces, but MDOT is our biggest partner, statewide or federal, other than the communities, of course. And we're the liaison between the federal government and the state agencies, especially MDOT, for all of the cities and villages and townships and counties. Some of the other things we do, our biggest point is really collaboration, where we have our commission meets on a regular basis, our committees meet on a regular basis. We get education to them. There's always a roundtable session where everybody gets to hear what's going on across the 8 counties. Then also we work on a variety of community-based resources or community resources for their use. Population projections. We only go to 20 years, so we're only up to 2040 right now. Regional reviews, so that we have all the plans gathered so that we know that each community is going in at least a similar direction and not heading off in different areas. Assistance in developing plans, recreation plans, land use plans, transportation plans. We help with grant applications and programs, and anything from letters of support to informing our communities of the programs. The region is politically neutral. We don't, sit on one side or the other of the aisle. We stay out of the fray. At least I do. I don't get into it. I also serve on a variety of boards, and so I'll sit on economic development committees in each of the counties. So it's a two-way street as far as information goes. And one of my favorite things to do are just one-on-one meetings where I'll pop into a village and talk to a clerk or a city manager, or that's my favorite part of my job. I know every donut joint and hamburger spot in my 8 counties. Our funding, I mentioned how much our budget is. This past couple years, federal and state have been equal because we had a CARES Act grant that went through the Economic Development Administration, and then the local down there, the 16%. We have dues from our counties primarily. We have a couple of individual members as well, like the City of Wyoming. But EDA really requires that. It's a buy-in for their grants, and we use the dues funds as a match for our federal grant. You see my contact information on there. You can get a hold of me anytime, although my cell phone is turned off right this second. And also, if you want to find out about your specific region, huh?
It's blank.
Oh, well, they have a piece of paper, so I'm old school, so you got that to take home with you. There is a myregions.org on there. Has all information about each of Michigan's regions. So if Amy and I aren't representing your region, you can find out who is. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. O'Leary and Mr. B. Appreciate your time. If you members have questions, please grab the attention of the clerk. I'd like to start actually by directing my first question to Ms. O'Leary. You, in one of your slides, I believe on the community slide, you had referenced the term diverse revenue options. What does that look like to you?
Oh, I got you. Good question. Right. Thank you. Well, I know that in our communities, they were looking at diversifying from just property taxes alone into other options. So that could be other sales taxes that they've looked at in the past as well.
Okay. Yeah, we recently had a ballot initiative in my city to implement an income tax, and I know that there are more than 24 cities throughout the state that leverage or utilize an income tax mechanism. I think that through those discussions, I think we were interested in understanding what possibility there is for alternative funding options or revenue sources within local communities. So I might like to expand upon that from hearing from your members as well as your members, Mr. B, to understand what that looks like and to, as you talked about the need for collaboration, to collaborate on how these systems interact with one another to ensure that we are, again, making sure that local governments are funded to the services that they need to be providing. So I'd like to hear from your members and from your organizations about what that might look like going forward.
That would be great.
Thank you.
About 23 years ago, Big Rapids put together an income tax, and
Yes.
we helped them compare all the different communities that had already, and it seems to be working all right for them.
Yeah, the range of cities, the size and scope and location of those is quite different. We have everything from Albion to Detroit, Lansing to Grand Rapids. There are many cities that are utilizing this funding mechanism, but I think understanding and educating folks on opportunities for that implementation is important. So, would love to have that kind of discussion continue. Chair recognizes Representative Breen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. I'm a former SEMCOG delegate from my city council days. I love the data that you were able to put on there, although I went to law school not to do math, so the data and the maps that you present are always really helpful when we're trying to look at what's happening in a community. And I know my friends from the MML are back there too, so they might appreciate this question. Do you guys have any thoughts on Prop A and Headley and what we might be able to do in order to fund our local communities in a better fashion? Or do you need a whole separate meeting for that?
I would say probably a whole separate meeting for that with our friends from MML. Yeah.
I stay out of the fray. No.
Well, then I personally would love to hear your suggestions at any point, if you want to offer any, whether now or in a separate meeting.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you very much, Representative Breen. Chair recognizes Representative Bizat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I've seen this a couple times from last session, but I was going through as your presentation, your unfunded mandates. We're having an issue right now with townships, and since you work with elected officials as well, on the veterans property tax, 100% disability. Seems like townships are applying that. It's pretty clear that if they're 100% disabled, they get the tax unfunded, they get the tax break. And these townships and county officials are applying it for some reason differently. Are you running into that problem, or can you help with that problem, or?
Well, I can tell you, I was just at the MTA conference, and they were speaking to that about legislation regarding the veterans tax credit. So, I'm sorry, they made it seem that it wasn't overly controversial, and
It's a
that
huge issue.
that it is, but that
I'm on the Veterans Affairs Board in Livingston County, and it's turning into a big, big issue. And I think some of these townships, you know, I don't know for sure, but I think they're upset about the unfunded mandate. When this law came into effect in 15, I think it was Senator Hune from our county that got this done, but there's no funding for the townships, and I think that's where the issue is.
that is where the issue is, but that the state was picking up the cost and reimbursing is what I have heard.
Well, it's not to my knowledge, but anyway,
Okay.
if you can look into that and let me know, it's turning into a nightmare for our county.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Bizat. I can assure you that there will probably be continued discussion here and testimony provided to that singular issue in the future here. So thank you very much. Yeah. Chair recognizes Representative Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for the presentation today. Really appreciate it. So my question has to do with water infrastructure, which I know you touched on briefly. Just for reference, my House district encompasses the west end of Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, where we've seen just catastrophic flooding, especially in the past few years along the Rouge River, Ecorse Creek, and so on. And our challenge in terms of geography is that we are literally downstream from many other communities. And so everything kind of backs up, onto our properties and in our community. So can you talk to us about any, tips, tricks, best practices for just building, I think, communication and cooperation across units of local government, across different cities, perhaps even different counties? I think that's a huge issue for us. I know Mayor Hammoud and Mayor Bazzi in Dearborn and the Heights are working on that. But if there's anything you can speak to on that end, for me personally, that would be very helpful.
Sure. Well, thank you. Communication and cooperation, for sure, and having the leadership of Mayor Hammoud, Mayor Bazzi is one of the keys, is having those leaders. I mean, it's no surprise that we asked Mayor Hammoud to lead or co-lead that conversation for us, and there's no accident that we had Dearborn be the community that we wanted to be involved in this when it comes to green and nature-based solutions. So, one, right, having the right leadership, which you do, which I think is great. But one of it doesn't always come down to dollars, but a lot of it does. And we're seeing more and intense rain events, and our systems already had trouble handling the rain events that we had in our region. So what are we doing with the water as the rain events are getting stronger? That's where there's two sides to it. There's the infrastructure, underground infrastructure side, and the analysis that's going on by the Great Lakes Water Authority and the SEMCOGs and the Dearborns of the world, trying to really get a grapple on the pipe side of this. I mean, we just are having big conversations looking at the Southfield Freeway and how that's backing up, and what can we do there to engineer that differently. So there's that side of things, and there's a lot of communication going on between MDOT, and one of our jobs is to convene, right, and have those kinds of conversations. The other is the nature-based side of that, which I think is an untapped, really, opportunity. And a lot of times when we talk about nature, we say nature is kind of out in the rural areas, and that's where you preserve, which you do for a lot of reasons. But when we're trying to manage the storm, you got to have the nature near where the rainfall is happening, near those urbanized areas. So finding those locations to offload, or those existing wetlands, which we now know where they are, that can handle the flood water, to be able to put it in there. And that's what this whole program with the two mayors is all about. That's what the appropriation is about, is being able to fund some of those things to be able to help protect the residents because of all the flooding.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Are there any other questions from the committee for our guest here today? Seeing no questions, thank you very much, Ms. O'Leary, Mr. B, for your testimony today. We look forward to continuing our conversations, I'm sure with you offline. But thank you very much for your attendance today, and thank you for your patience as we continue to deal with weather and various events that have prevented us from meeting here the last couple of weeks. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
With that, we need a motion to excuse Rep. Pies from today's committee meeting. Moved by Representative Breen. Excuse me, we also have Representative Harris absent. Do we have a motion to excuse Representative Harris? Representative Bizat makes that motion. Seeing no objection, those members are excused. There being no further business before this committee, the committee will stand adjourned. Thank you.